Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, February 19th. Hope everybody is having a great day so far. If you are just tuning in, we're about to go over a lot of stuff today, whether that be the dream offseason of different NFL teams, a scary situation for others, as well as what the MLB season might look like for some, and of course, taking a look at the bracketology or the bubble watch for a lot of teams as we head into March right around the corner. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, February 19th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our first topic of the day, that being around the Bengals and what could be a franchise-altering offseason. They have not one, not two, not three, but four major pieces that need to be figured out this season. You have one that's asked for a trade that if he doesn't get traded, probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for them. In Jermaine Pratt, he's not up for a contract, but he was their leading tackler last season. And that might not mean much because Jermaine Pratt and that Bengals defense were not very good. But you have one of your leaders in the clubhouse wanting out after he just signed a 3-year deal a couple seasons ago. He's still got 1 year left on his contract. He wants out. He wants to go to a new team. If you can get a lot for him, go for it. But this is a guy that I think is really valuable to your defense, especially when you're trying to rebuild it with these young guys from the draft, with some free agents that you're taking a shot on. This is one that I think is very important to keep around if you can. Obviously, the other defender and the three key free agents that are out there for them, that's going to be the two wide receivers and the runner-up for the Defensive Player of the Year in Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson ended up leading the league in sacks last season with 17 and a half. He had an amazing year. He was a guy that the Bengals defense, believe it or not, would have been even worse without him out there. There were games where he got shut out, sure, but that happens to every defender in the league nowadays. There's not a single defender this year that it did not happen to at least once. Trey Hendrickson is a must re-sign. Having an elite edge rusher is the foundation of a defense. And we saw guys all season really target in on Trey Hendrickson because the rest of that Bengals defensive line, the rest of that Bengals defense wasn't really anything special, and he still managed to get 17 and a half sacks on the year. He's been one of the more underrated players in the NFL for a hot minute there. Now, Trey Hendrickson is a guy that they need to work a contract out with, and he is a guy that I think will command top edge rusher money. When it comes to the wide receivers, obviously Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are the center of conversation for this team. We've seen Joe Burrow go on a media tour. It's basically saying, the Bengals, you need to go and sign everybody. I can't do this without help. I really would like it if you would sign them. And the first move that the Bengals have to make this offseason is going to be to restructure the contract with Joe Burrow. They can convert some of the money into a signing bonus. He makes $55 million every year. That's going to be a huge, huge piece of the puzzle to help them configure enough to get into the cap. Now, the cap numbers came out today. It's going to be anywhere from $277 million to $281 million. That is a lot of money. It was up from $255 last season, so that is almost a $25 million jump. That's exactly what a lot of these teams needed. Now, that was already projected over there, right? These are guys that it's going to grow. It's always projected to grow, which is why contracts age better. And that goes directly into the Jamar Chase conversation. Jamar Chase and the Cincinnati Bengals were unable to come up with a contract agreement in the last offseason. They were working on it for a while. It seemed like Jamar Chase might hold out to get the contract. He ends up playing in week 1 and the rest of the season as well. When the market was for him somewhere between $30 and $35 million last offseason, because he was in the middle of that wide receiver explosion. Right now, the highest paid receiver at the very end of that explosion is at $35 million. Jamar Chase, after coming up with a wide receiver triple crown this season, is going to rightfully so deserve and ask for more money than any other receiver is making. So now not only are you looking at paying a wide receiver $36 to $40 million a year, you're looking at paying that exact same guy $36 to $40 million a year because you were too cheap to pay him last season. And you know what his contract would have been like? Probably $34 million if I had to take a shot at it. You would have saved not just money against the cap, but just straight up money in your pocket if you are the owners of the Bengals. The Bengals have been known to be one of the poorer franchises in the NFL. They've been a little stingy with their money. It's been an issue all the way back to when Kurt Warner was their quarterback, right? It just has not worked out for them. These are things that you need to be able to invest in as a franchise if you want to get better. And Joe Burrow has been over there trying to get everyone to buy into this organization. Jamar Chase is going to get a lot of money, and he's going to be the highest paid wide receiver in all of the NFL, and he's going to deserve it. But the Bengals could have had this sorted out last season, and it would not have been as big of a deal because it would have been cheaper. The other one, and the one that I think is a little bit more interesting, is the conversation surrounding T. Higgins. T. Higgins played on a franchise tag last season. A lot of times you see teams give out a franchise tag and then negotiate with the player, try and get the long-term contract done. That happened 7 times last season. The only player to play on the franchise tag last year out of the 8 that were given the tag was T. Higgins. T. Higgins, once again, is a candidate to be franchised. If he does, he's going to get about $26 million. That's more than the average wide receiver franchise tag because he was franchise tagged last time. So he gets 120% rather than 100% of what it would be. T. Higgins, as they say, is going to be working with a deal. We're trying to work out a long-term deal with the Bengals. If they can't, the Bengals have said that they're going to give him that franchise tag at the deadline of March 4th. So keep an eye on him. He might be the first big piece of the puzzle to fall. But the question is, will T. Higgins even play on the franchise tag? We've seen a lot of players in the past refuse to play on franchise tags, refuse to play until they get that long-term contract that they're looking for. And T. Higgins could command top wide receiver money. We're looking over $30 million money if he was able to hit the open market. Now, he has said he wants to come back to Cincinnati. He has said that he wants to play with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all those guys. But the issue for the Bengals is they're already spending big. It's hard to spend big on quarterback and wide receiver and another wide receiver and defensive end. You just don't see that happen too often in the NFL. And teams can point to the Eagles being able to do it. But the reason that the Eagles were able to do it now is because they got these contracts done years ago. They got these contracts done when it was top dollar and it was the most expensive. But now they're getting them at what seems like a discount. People are calling Jalen Hurts' contract a discount. He's getting paid $51 million a year. That is not a discount, right? The Bengals, if they want to be a cheap organization, the best way to be cheap, and it sounds counterintuitive, the best way to be cheap in the NFL is to extend your guys as quickly as possible, because then those contracts look like bargains later. But what do you think the Bengals are going to be able to do? I don't think they're going to be able to re-sign everybody. Probably going to have to leave one of those guys on the chopping block. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to a very interesting situation this offseason surrounding the Atlanta Falcons, our ongoing series of what a dream offseason might look like. We do a deep dive into the Falcons and how they can get everything they want heading into 2025. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.